Hi, I'm Cheng Thom, and you're watching Ask Kai, Quick Tips for the Apocalypse, a series of short videos in which I, give you advice about the apocalypse. We were thinking about rebranding this whole thing, actually, because we were like, is it still the apocalypse? Maybe it's just like quick tips for like the neutral time, but then now, the case numbers are rising and there's climate disaster. And so I'm pretty sure we're just going to stick with quick tips of the apocalypse because this is the apocalypse. Hooray. So today's question is about the pandemic and the holidays, which is an issue that I'm thinking about, that you may be thinking about, probably a lot of us are thinking about it. What a wonderful time that we live in. So the question asker writes, Dear Kai, my partner and I are both vaccinated against COVID-19, but my partner's parents are not. And they have invited us to come over for a holiday meal. I am pretty COVID anxious and I don't want to go, but I also don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. What do I do? I'm a conflict resolution person, and you would not believe how many people are asking me this particular question in some form or another, professionally, personally. It's always like, how do I deal with family and the holidays and people who are not vaccinated if I'm vaccinated? And I think this is because, first of all, it's a fundamental conflict that echoes a lot of other kinds of conflicts and political breaks in our society right now. Like, it's not just some people are vaccinated and others are unvaccinated, which would be serious enough. But now there's also sort of like, if you're unvaccinated, maybe like you're more right-wing or libertarian. There's this kind of idea around that. And if you are vaccinated, maybe you're more left-wing or liberal. And there's, a whole kind of cultural ethos around that. And so it comes to mean or stand in for a lot of people's other ideas or other values. And all of those things coming together at once in a single conflict around a holiday dinner or gathering is just really explosive. And I think as well, there's something in there about people's goodness that gets folded into the conflict about vaccinations. Like, if you really think about why people are getting vaccinated or why they're not getting vaccinated, the underlying reason is actually fear on both sides. Now, I am afraid of getting COVID, and I'm particularly afraid of giving COVID to other people. That's my nightmare, is giving COVID to other people. And so I get vaccinated to make that less of a possibility. Other folks who are in the unvaccinated or anti-vaccination camp also have an underlying fear. Usually they are not refusing to get vaccinated just to stick it to the libs. They might be doing other things to stick it to the libs, but they are mostly not getting vaccinated because they are afraid that the vaccinations are harmful in some way, afraid that the precedent of getting these vaccinations is going to allow the government to take more control over their bodies, which, to me doesn't make a ton of sense because there are all these other medical procedures that we do and the government already has total control of us. So why even worry? No, I joke. But so it's a fear underlying that. There's a life fear. So we are choosing to not get vaccinated or to get vaccinated based on fear for our lives or the lives of people around us. And that's very serious. But the actual conflict that we have about vaccinations doesn't really address these fears in a compassionate way. And what fears need in order to be de-escalated is usually some kind of compassion. Instead, we make the conflict about goodness, about morality. Like, you didn't get vaccinated, so you must be an evil person and a Trump supporter, and I just don't think that you're worthy of spending time with, is sort of the message that we can unintentionally give off. And then on the other side, there's this, well, you got vaccinated, so you're a government stooge and you're trying to make me give up control of my body. And so you're not worth spending any time with, is the message that comes back from the other end. And you'll notice that we're actually kind of talking past each other. It's like, you're bad for this reason, you're bad for this reason, and never does the conversation actually line up around what we have in common, which is that we are all afraid for our lives and all terrified of losing yet more control in a situation, a society, dare I say, an apocalypse, where we have already lost most of our control over our personal and political worlds. So what does that mean for the practical reality of engaging with someone who is unvaccinated when you're vaccinated? Well, first of all, I would suggest that if you want to avoid, quote, hurting people's feelings, well, you don't have control over people's feelings. So their feelings are going to be whatever their feelings are. No matter how nice you are, they might hear something different in what you're saying. That said, if we can try to practice this compassion thing, like have a conversation that joins up instead of talking past one another, then it's more likely that you're going to be able to get to a result where the person still feels somewhat respected by you, which I'm assuming is what you want if the person you're engaging with is like, family or in-laws or friends or something like that. You want them to feel respected, even if you agree to disagree. Now, of course, there's the practical question of, do you have to meet with someone who is unvaccinated if you're vaccinated and afraid of catching COVID or afraid of COVID spread? And my very direct answer to that is no, I think you do not. I think that we all should have the right to decide who we meet with or not. We should have as much bodily autonomy as possible. And so if your boundary is you don't want to hang out with people in person who are unvaccinated, I really suggest that you don't do that. I really suggest that you're just like, nope, I'm not going to. Now, the conversation you have about why you're not going to depends on whom you're addressing at the time. If it's just some rando stranger, then you probably don't really need to explain yourself very much. And the truth is you never have to explain yourself if you don't want to. But if it's your partner's parents or someone who is similarly important in your life, then you may want to have that conversation I'm talking about, where again, what you're trying to do is address the fears. So I would just kind of try and skip over all of that. Are you a good person? Are you a bad person? And I would try actually to anticipate it. Like when you're actually having the conversation where you explain why you're not coming over for Christmas or whatever the holiday meal is, you might say, well, the truth is I know that you're not vaccinated and I am vaccinated, and that's like a pretty big difference, and it's just not something that I feel comfortable with for health reasons. I know you have opinions of your own, and I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. If you'd like to talk to me about this, I'm open to hearing about it. But while you're unvaccinated, I just can't be going over there to visit you. And that probably will provoke some kind of reaction. And the idea here is if you want to de-escalate is to hear that reaction and validate that people are not getting the vaccination for fears of their own. While we're holding our boundaries, we don't also have to go on the mission to change other people's minds. If what you want is to just de-escalate and kind of get out of there, then I would just be like, okay, yeah, I'm hearing your fears. I'm hearing that you don't want to get the vaccination, and I'm not going to try to make you. And as just like I'm not going to try to make you get the vaccination, please don't try and make me come and see you while you don't have it. And let's agree to disagree. I would love to, have a meal over Zoom or, over telephone call or something like that. If someone is saying, I'm not getting the vaccination because I'm afraid of the government, well, you don't have to validate the fact that they're not getting the vaccination. But if it were me, I would validate the fact that they're afraid of the government, because who isn't afraid of the government, right? Like the government hasn't exactly been trustworthy on a whole lot of things, basically since the founding of the existence of this country. So I would validate that, and see what else you can validate. Usually, again, it comes down to this. We're all losing our control over our bodies and our social worlds, and that's really shitty. And so everything you can find to agree with, you could try just agreeing with, and then on the point where you differ, which is like getting the vaccination or not, seeing if there's any room on the other side for the other person where they're like, oh, well, I'm not sure about this, or I can see your argument here. And if you tell someone your emotional reason for getting the vaccination, kind of counterintuitively, that tends to work better than telling someone the logical reason that you got the vaccination. Let me summarize that. No, you do not have to meet with people who are unvaccinated if you don't want to. If you would like to have that conversation and de-escalate, see if you can have a kind of conversation where you're talking to each other, speaking from emotion, rather than telling people that they're wrong or trying to convince them. And if you're really trying to convince someone because that's what you believe is the right thing to do, then be prepared for conflict. And again, see if you can connect to people where they're really coming from in terms of emotion and fear, rather than trying to convince them with facts, because the facts are out there and they can access them. But usually people are operating from this more emotional logic kind of place. All right, that's it for today. You've been watching Ask Kai, quick tips for the apocalypse. Stay safe, wear your mask, don't go anywhere for the holidays that you don't want to go. Go where you feel safe, go where you feel supported. That's what the holidays are for.